We now have AI connecting into our systems. We also have AI agents logging into these systems and doing work for us. These are tremendous tools, but where does it leave business privacy and data security? How does IT and corporate security operations adjust to this reality and protect our data? And can they with AI's rapid progress? Let's accelerate your business. Welcome to the AI Accelerator for Business show, where you get the latest strategies, tactics, and information about the business benefits of artificial intelligence. My name is Carl Ye. I'm joined by my co-host, Jeff Bradshaw. And today we're going to talk about data and security in business in the age of AI. And I think this is a really tough topic because with how things are changing rapidly, I do not feel sorry, or I do not want to be in the position some IT and SecOps people are in right now.
You know what, Carl? I mean, security right now in the age of AI is such a huge issue. I mean, if AI agents aren't governed, I mean, mid-sized firms risk breaches, compliance failures, lost contracts. Like, there's all kinds of issues, and this is such new territory that I think it's an important issue that needs to be addressed.
I think the tough thing here is there has to be a fine balance between, your data, your privacy, security, and the ability to give your teams the leeway to test and be productive. We've talked about this on other shows where the advantage right now is going to AI native companies where they don't have these legacy structures, legacy security systems, legacy anything, and they're kind of starting from scratch in a whole new paradigm versus, a more established company, let's say decades old, years old, where they have all these processes. But more importantly, from a data and security perspective, they're still in the, whether it's risk averse or we have to find a way to protect our data first. We're going to get governance policy before we actually execute an AI, which also is a danger in itself.
Well, and again, we work with a lot of IT departments, and IT is a critical part of any AI integration plan. But we also know, too, that a lot of AI departments are based on a fear-mongering type approach, right? Like, it's just lock everything down because we're going to get attacked. And you're right, there's got to be that balance, because if you're locking everything down, you could hinder your company's ability to stay competitive. So you've got to be able to free it up a little bit and give people a little bit of room to test the waters, or create an environment where they can go test the waters, or provide the right guidance to people so they know what they can and can't do. Because it's just, we see this all the time. It's just like, nope, complete lockdown. Well, what's going to happen is that if you actually have some AI enthusiasts, they're just going to use their own personal accounts. And there's more of a risk of them sharing information through their personal accounts because there's no record of it. I also think, too, that, I mean, IT security is obviously such a huge issue and it needs to be addressed. But I think that, a lot of people are like, well, is this AI model going to train on my data? And this is a bit of a different topic, but I mean, I would say that ChatGPT or Gemini or something training on your data, you've probably got a greater risk of an employee sharing a document with a competitor than a competitor finding the information through a large language model. So I don't know, we need to put this into perspective, but there's got to be that balance.
And I think, when you start creating those governance or your policies, you have to have a flexibility built in. And I know this is hard, especially for heavily regulated industries, right? Law firms, health, and so on, where client data is paramount, right? Especially like, private data is super paramount. The last thing you want to do is get that out. But what makes this very hard is things like agent mode, things like GenSpark, where they mimic you. They mimic you to be able to go into a system and take action. And, they have agentic browsers that can do this. So as long as, if I give agent mode the capability to log into whatever system, it's probably going to log in there as you. And it's very difficult to piece out, okay, who is it, really Carl, or is it Carl's agent that was coming in? But with agents becoming more and more prevalent, then IT has to think about, well, we have to be able to allow agents to do more work, whether it's internally or externally, but then also not just have security measures, but also teach proper ways to enabling your agent, because there is a high likelihood we're in the wild, wild west. You have malicious agents that can go into any company and start extracting things. And I think most IT companies would be hard pressed to be prepared for any of that.
Well, a good example, when ChatGPT came out with their agent mode, a couple of days afterwards, I went in and I used the agent to go in and log into two different tender sites, purchasing sites here in Canada, and it had no problem. It came up onto the login page. It asked for my username and password. I entered it. It logged in. It pulled the information. I have no idea where my username and password that I entered into this agent is stored and who has access to it. Fortunately, I changed the password on both of them, but then I tried it with a skip the dishes order. I was going to order Tim Hortons coffee and it got caught up in the caption. It wouldn't actually let me go through because of the captcha. So
Mhm.
it's there. But again, if you think about it from a corporate standpoint, there's probably going to be a lot of corporate intranet sites that maybe don't have that level of security. If I can get into Merck's and pull out RFPs, there's probably a good chance there's lots of corporate sites that an agent could log into if somebody gets in the wrong hands.
And don't get me even started on, the stuff that I'm doing with Claude Code, Cursor, where, you can give it full control of your desktop, which means also full control of any cloud applications and any software that's your folders that are connected by the cloud, because I can just go Claude Code connected directly to certain folders and I'll be like, yeah, I want you to move this, analyze this, extract this, do this. And I don't know if IT is even aware of Claude Code's capabilities, because I guarantee more than 50%, they're like, I've never seen that before. I don't even know what that will do. And have you protected your computer from most employees will never ever use their terminal.
Well, and I think what we're seeing with a lot of the clients that we deal with is the IT department is kind of being forced to go down the AI route. But there, we also know that most IT departments are slammed. There's no shortage of work as it stands. And so what their default is, well, we're using Microsoft, so let's give people access to Microsoft Copilot because it's more secure. But is it more secure, right? And again, I don't know. There's a big question mark out there that needs to be addressed, and you got to have all of these groups coming together. I compare it to 25 years ago. We started a streaming company, and we went to a conference, and we were providing streaming media. This is back in 1999 when we were still using dial-up modems, which most people don't even remember. And we went to this conference. We said to the bandwidth guy, we said, we need more bandwidth so that we can share more audio and video files. Like, we need bigger pipelines. He says, well, we need more demand and more content to share so that we can justify providing bigger pipelines. So it's kind of
Yeah.
like a give and take. And I think that's the thing, is that you need the advancement of AI, but you also need the IT departments to come along with it and give that access. Otherwise, you get at a bit of a stalemate.
And how are IT professionals supposed to, protect the company, do their jobs, but also at the same time, because I think they're put in a very difficult spot, right? You have a job to, provide information technology across the organization, make sure it works well, troubleshoot. But at the same time, there's this big looming thing of AI injecting itself into every person's workflow. And while most of the people in your organization, we talked about this, aren't using AI to its full capability, you still have to be aware of these capabilities and to protect your organization. But also on the flip side, prepare your organization to be able to leverage it and use it in a safe, responsible manner on top of all the other stuff that you're doing with your job. So it's a very difficult process, and we know that the AI program itself is usually passed on to IT just because there's not really anywhere else to put that thing.
Well, no, and I think IT professionals are kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't, because you get pressure from executives to say, hey, we need access to these tools. And then when shit hits the fan and things go wrong, the fingers pointed at IT saying, well, why didn't you protect us? Well, it's like, well, what do you want? I'm trying to give you the flexibility to use these tools, but you also want me to, it's all on my shoulders to protect the organization. That's why I think it's important for us. I mean, whenever we get involved in groups, we're always encouraging them, say, let us work with your IT team, but we need IT teams that are also open to ideas, because we can work with IT teams to say, okay, what are some safe tests that we can do that aren't going to hinder the organization's data, but still allow us to do some tests to see where there's some improvements, and then come to a solution together as to where you can safely integrate, the new AI technology.
Part of the appeal of Microsoft Copilot is it's less of a headache for IT professionals, right? Sure, you have all the stuff in terms of Azure and people who want to build on it, but you kind of know the devil that you know. Like you kind of know the platform, and you generally believe, hey, Microsoft Copilot's safe, and this is probably how we want to roll it out. But there's that friction when Copilot doesn't meet the goals or the wants of your employees, who then, hey, if you're gonna go Microsoft, I'm just gonna use my own thing, and you won't ever know that I'm using it, but it makes me more efficient because I'm being told to be more efficient, so I'm going to use my thing and barely use yours. And that's a tough thing. That's a tough spot to be put in, because it's like, hey, I have to learn about X product. I have to know the security. I can barely keep up with an agent mode. I can barely keep up with a Claude code that can do this. We talked about this. We in that Calgary police training session, the IT guy was there, and he's like, "Yeah, don't connect it to that." And you're telling me it's like, yeah, well, like, constables are always using ChatGPT to help them with their work, and it's not sanctioned by the department or the service.
I notice this. I'm noticing this more and more in our discovery sessions with clients, where you ask people who uses some kind of an AI tool, and kind of people put their hands up, and they kind of play dumb. And then once you get into the discovery sessions, you get the odd person saying, "Well,
Yeah.
yeah, I've ran all my reports through this, or I've ran my spreadsheet through this, all this company data." But they kind of say, but they're like, "Oh, but I removed all the company." Like they start backpedaling because they're fearful of getting in trouble from the IT department. But you know that they're using it.
Yeah.
So it's just, I don't know. It's a balancing act, and again, it's moving so quickly. I think it has to be a group effort. It has to be, you have to have everybody on the same page. You have to have the executives pushing for those efficiencies, but also the IT department right there, kind of holding the reins back so that they don't get too crazy. But you can't stand still, and that's,
Yeah.
again, unfortunately, we see that with a lot of organizations.
And when you talked about blocking, completely blocking certain tools, like we've run into, when we did our presentation to a couple major banks, they're like, yeah, it's funny how, like, hey, I can't even access some websites, and they're like, no, we can't even access. It's like, that's very difficult, and this is why I think, like, even if you go with an enterprise, software, like, oh, it's a Microsoft or Cohere, I think you're still missing out on the possibilities of what your team can do. And this is a completely different new way of thinking about it. So it's like, instead of like creating a perimeter defense on what can't or cannot come through, you may have to be more of like a continuous radar. It's like, hey, this is coming. How do we adapt to that? This is coming. How do we adapt to that? Versus nothing's going to get in. Then it's like, okay, well, now you can have shadow AI by all your employees, which to me is more dangerous and less beneficial to the company, because not everyone's getting the benefits of that.
Well, and this ties into our other show, though, when we talked about, just the advancements. I think that you don't need the latest and greatest AI tool to be integrated into your corporate site, but you can take proven models, like some of the large language models, like some of the image gen tools that haven't really changed, and at least give some basic access to them. Maybe you can kind of restrict the agent mode in ChatGPT or some of these agent tools that are still fairly new, but still somehow give access to some of the more powerful tools in some of these large language models that people aren't even accessing. I mean, maybe there's a balance there so that you can kind of restrict the latest and greatest.
And I'm always looking for new ways that IT can actually leverage this, right? So, when I was just talking about like going from perimeter defense to continuous monitoring too, and maybe changing the way that you do budgets. Because I
Right.
know it's always a pain. It's like, we have this long RFP process. We have this annual budgeting. It's like, hey, maybe for AI, your budget is more flex. Or from an RFP perspective, you have to shorten it because the tools change on a regular basis. And while I know sometimes this is why an ERP system, right, is always like, oh, we got to get an ERP system because it can do everything. It's like, well, no, but we hear horror stories of ERP systems all the time. Um, oh, we tried to implement this, it didn't work. Or it just doesn't meet what we need, or our ERP is only 20%
Yeah.
of what we use it for. And then we're paying like how many hundreds of thousands of dollars a year for only using 20% of the thing. So I think you can't take that approach here, because we've seen this. X companies like, oh, we're paying $50,000 for this AI tool. It's like, oh, what does it do? Oh, it literally does what a custom GPT can do. that
For
you
20
will
bucks a
have.
month.
Yeah, for 20 bucks a month. Oh no, but no, it's more secure. It's like, is it?
Right.
Because if you want it secure, you can build your stuff on premise, but still not have to pay $50,000 a month,
Yeah.
and those kind of things. So I think it's that kind of thinking, and I know it's hard too. So, in your opinion, like, what's kind of one thing that IT pros or IT departments should think about when looking at AI adoption from more of a new progressive type perspective?
Well, I think that it's with everything. It's about education, and it's trying to, I guess, it's easy to say, tougher to do, but don't take the easy route. Don't just simply go with a Microsoft Copilot because it's available and check the box. If there's an opportunity to explore some of these other tools more in a confined space so that you can at least give your organization a competitive advantage to be able to test the waters with some of these new tools, that would be my one tip, is just don't do that 100% lockdown, because I think that it could be detrimental in the long term.
And one thing that we haven't actually talked about is the ability for AI to help IT do the monitoring, help IT not just come up with policies, but actually be part of that monitoring, that security, right? Not necessarily AI to be that perimeter defense, but help you be, constantly monitoring the new things that are coming out. Because I think that will help. And you got a pretty smart like advisor and companion that you can always bounce ideas off of and help you implement some of these things too.
Well, and I think, and this, maybe this is but whether again you use an organization like us or you do it yourself, but come up with an AI strategy for your organization. Not just check the box of, yes, we got Copilot, so we're good. Actually find out where AI can be helpful in your organization, because there might be a handful of AI projects and solutions that aren't going to jeopardize any security, data risks, that you could implement and still allow your organization to move along. So come up with a strategy on kind of short, mid, and long-term AI applications, and then do an analysis of what the security risks are for each of them.
And, I want to leave our audience with this. And I think, like, because most businesses, the employees there use outside of Copilot, the majority obviously use ChatGPT. But I want to leave them because I think whenever we go into our clients and prospect presentations, we it's always a surprise about this. So I just want to showcase a couple different things. First of all, if your team uses ChatGPT and outside of your rules, people are using it, I would highly do two things. One, I would get whoever's using it, and you don't even have to say who's using it. Just say, hey, if you're going to use it, go to the OpenAI privacy portal, have them make a privacy request to ensure that none of the data is being trained on.
Right.
Right? That's part one. Now, I know you can go into ChatGPT, go to your account, go to your settings, go to your data controls, and then turn this off, right? Turn this off, turn that off so it's not training on anything, right? You can do a lot more customization in terms of your privacy security. Believe if you don't want any kind of training, then I would do both. I would do the privacy request, and then I would also do inside ChatGPT itself. Now, this is a brand new one. Some of you may be thinking, hey, wait a minute, I'll just go to a different model. Claude's never, like, their whole model, constitutional model, doesn't train on data. Well, a couple of weeks ago, they actually did. They actually made the change where I didn't used to see this help improve Claude. So now, and this has been turned on by default when I open this, so you may want to turn this off, go into Claude and turn off help improve Claude if you do not want Claude training on your conversations and your data, and as well as location metadata. Like, if you don't want Claude doing that, so that's something you have to do too. So just a couple tips for you on making sure, even if your team, even if you think your policies are, people abide by them, I guarantee they're not. At the very least, give them an understanding of, hey, what they can do to protect your company and also protect themselves. So, just a couple of questions for our audience here is, how are you currently tracking agent, if any, AI agents across your systems, accessing your systems? And if regulators asked you today, could you prove real-time data privacy compliance? Could you? Because I'm not sure very many companies could. Learn more about implementing AI for your business by watching these videos here. Enjoy today's episode. Want to learn how AI can impact your business? Then please subscribe to this channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in our next episode.